Welcome to the Content Amplified podcast, brought to you by Masset. Our goal is to help you get more from your marketing content. Each episode is a 10 to 15 minute interview with industry experts that share amazing insights to help you squeeze as much juice from your content as you possibly can. Here's today's interview.
Welcome back to another episode of Content Amplified. Today I'm joined by Sarah. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks, Ben. Thanks for having me.
You bet. I'm excited for the conversation today. Super applicable to both of our backgrounds. It's going to be a fun conversation. But Sarah, something we always ask before we dive in, let us get to know what you love about content and marketing, and then catch us up on your career a little bit.
Sure. So I think what drew me to marketing and content marketing specifically was the ability to problem solve, like the creative component of everyday problem solving in content marketing. While there are some things that you do on a regular basis because they work, content marketing lets you explore new creative outlets, new ways to solve problems. And, my background is in writing and communications, and getting into content marketing, having the ability to experiment not only with voice and with the writing style, but also with content strategy. And that's what brought me into marketing. I would say for the past about 15 years, I've worked in content marketing for B2B software technology companies focused on government, finance, healthcare, education, and most recently, risk and physical security. So, serving a variety of industries, writing for a variety of industries, creating content for a variety of personas and solutions. It's that variety and problem solving I was talking about before.
I love it. And what I like about your background, you've operated in a lot of different areas, a lot of different businesses and technologies. And what's interesting, and we've talked about this on the podcast before, we often talk about sometimes the conflict between marketing and sales. We're going to talk about a different one that sometimes stays within the marketing team, and that's really between a content team and the demand generation team. And really, how can we align these two groups to really get the best results possible? And this is going to be a fun subject. Sarah, you've spent your background in content. I've spent my background in demand generation. And so I think that there's this fun opportunity for this discussion. But really, for you, in your opinion and your thoughts, why is it so important that we focus and spend time and effort in aligning these two teams on a marketing department in a business?
This is such a great topic, and there's a human component, but also a business component to this as well. I only have experience in B2B space and businesses and B2B marketing teams. And if you think about it at the highest level, we all are striving toward the same goal. And it is to win business for whatever organization that we're in. Where content marketing has always been most comfortable has been that building an audience, that top of funnel, awareness, and just making sure people know who your organization is. You're attracting and retaining that audience with engaging content, with stories that they can relate to. But where demand gen lives is and tell me if I'm wrong, because you're the demand gen side of this. But it's typically in, how do we get these people down that funnel? How do we get them to sales? How do we get them to closed won? Yeah, that's great content marketing. You got them in the top of the funnel, but help me get them down. And in reality, the human component comes in when you realize you really have ultimately the same goals for for your customers, for the company. And so content plays a really important part in that entire demand gen process. in moving people. It really can move people through the funnel so much more efficiently. Content and demand gen need to open up and be willing to work together, and be flexible and be willing to be partners. Just in the past couple of years, I've had some experience and some breakthroughs. My content team is now working with demand gen in ways that we've never partnered, or I've never partnered with demand gen before.
I think that'll be cool. And we'll have to dive into some of those details of some of those breakthroughs in a second. And I love your definition because I do think it's really accurate of how marketing content teams look at demand generation and vice versa. And I think it's even generous. Sometimes demand generation won't even acknowledge the fact that content teams are filling the top of the funnel, where it's really just, hey, this is a brand play, but we've got to get results today in order to get enough pipeline and all that kind of fun stuff. So I think it's really important. So when you're looking at this, and I love your definition of sometimes the bifurcated focus of the two different teams. What are some of the opportunities that we can take to align those teams? It sounds like maybe there's a misalignment with goals. And how do we really start there? And then how do you kind of work your way backwards from that to kind of a system?
The goals and objectives really need to be clear. And I'm gonna take a step back, not all the way back to where you, as a demand generation person, just admitted that content team does fill the top of the funnel. But I'm gonna take it back to the first step in what I talked about in terms of like breaking down the silos and understanding that the teams need to work together, but they're working together toward the same goals. Those goals and objectives really should be defined from the very top of the organization. If you are a content team and your marketing leadership is measuring, if their KPIs are pipeline numbers, then as a content team, you really need to understand that that is what you're going to align with demand gen on, because those are your goals. So I think for your leadership to set those solid KPIs, be it, brand awareness and pipeline numbers, or, depending on which way you sway there, you really need to have a sit down then with your demand gen team as a content marketing person and say, this is our ultimate goal. How can we get there together? And then both of your teams have a little bit of flexibility, a little willingness to adjust. And also from a content marketing perspective, you should have a good idea of your funnel, of your buyer's journey, and demand gen can help you with that. They can help you with the knowledge that they have. You can help them with the knowledge that you have from your content metrics and what you're seeing your audience doing. They're going to do the same thing with their campaign metrics and tell you what they've seen, what resonates well at each stage, and then you can work together.
I love that. Yeah, I love the concept of having leadership really dictate these are the organizational goals. Here's what we're trying to accomplish, but also really understanding demand generation and content teams are different teams because you're still trying to accomplish the same goal, but you're able to tackle it from multiple different approaches.
Right.
And, I think a good demand gen leader should acknowledge that content fills the top of the funnel, but it also has a role at every stage of the funnel. And there's a lot that goes into this, even if the goal is pipeline or revenue or something like that, if people have no idea who you are, there's zero chance that you're going to fill that pipeline. It may not benefit you this month and it may be hard to track, but if you agree at what the buyer's journey is and that this is how people find out about who you are as a business, everyone should start to align to say, okay, cool. Like, let's get more people to know who we are because that will ultimately fill the funnel and all of those fun things. So, Sarah, you mentioned you had some of these breakthrough moments. What are some of those breakthroughs? What have you done on the collaboration side to really align those teams? It sounds like you're doing a tremendous job. What has been the process to get there?
Planning has really become a team effort between content and demand gen. We plan quarterly. but also we'll have like a larger half year plan. We'll meet and we'll talk about our plans quarterly. We'll talk about what, campaigns make the most sense given the priorities of the company, what audience you're going to reach out to, especially at a company that I'm at right now that serves multiple audiences, public sector, private sector, small, medium, large business. So you really kind of have to narrow your focus because you really can't do it all as much as we all try to. And then you plan, you get together, and it's a back and forth process. It's a content sees these gaps in what we have currently in our overall conversation. And demand gen says, well, we know we got to drive pipe here, here, and here. And so then we come together with what we have and we say, okay, well, this fits perfectly into this campaign. Content team is going to go ahead and keep this, these pieces of content here because we know that these are gaps in our conversation that we shouldn't have. So we try to plan in terms of having 60% of our content production for a quarter be strategically planned. So we know, these industry events are happening. We know these topics are what we want to cover. We know these products are what we want to focus on. So we've got, 60%, but we do leave that 40% for reactive stuff that demand gen is going to do throughout the quarter. With that said, planning is not like a one and done thing, right? We meet back up about midway through the quarter to say, okay, this is what we're seeing from this content performing. This is how business priorities have changed. And then demand gen does the same thing. They come in and say, well, these campaigns haven't been doing that great, so we're going to abandon that, or these have been killing it, so we need to do more of this. And so you need these constant touch points. And the only way to do that is by breaking down these barriers, breaking down these silos, getting rid of the egos, realizing that you really need to talk to these people. These people are your friends. You're on the same team working towards the same goals. And so check in. You still have ownership of this, but your product and your outcomes are going to be greater if you work together. I think some would even cringe at the fact that we've, offered up existing content to demand gen to fit a campaign. They've come back to us with feedback that this isn't going to work. We need a new CTA. We need a new audience even here. And as a content team, we've done that. We've, adjusted old blogs. We've refreshed ebooks to fit new campaigns. And we've seen results from it because we've worked together and realized that two are better than one in this case. So.
I love that. And there's a lot to unpack there that I think is really, really important. That's one of those things, that section where it's like, maybe I need to re-listen to that a couple times because there's a lot of little points. One that I'll just touch on that I absolutely love is the fact that you can give each other meaningful feedback that even is corrective feedback. The fact that one team can say to the other, hey, this isn't working. This needs to change. This needs to improve. If you are having meetings between a creative and content team and demand teams, and you don't have that going on in the meeting, there's some groundwork to be done to build relationships to give meaningful feedback. If you show up in the meeting and it's just like, oh, this is great, and that's all you say, that's bad news. Would you agree with that, Sarah?
I 100% agree with that. And it doesn't happen overnight, or at least it didn't happen overnight. For me, you really have to build trust. And this is where that human component comes in. You really have to build trust. Nobody likes, constructive criticism. If you do like constructive criticism, I'd like you to reach out to me and tell me how you become sublimely happy with it all the time. But it's necessary. And I think that over time, you're asking questions of each other. Like how many times would you be annoyed if a content person came to you again and asked you, for the goal of a specific program or for why you were targeting a specific audience? Like, you have to get out of that mindset that they're second guessing me. You have to get out of that mindset that they're trying to do my job. They're not. They're trying to understand. We're trying to understand what each other are doing so that we can help and so that we can support. And I think once you make that mindset shift of, we're really working together. So when demand gen comes to me and says, this piece is not exactly mobile optimized in the way that we would like to see it, or this piece is, the CTA is wrong and I think we should go this way. I mean, they would never say the CTA is wrong. They would come at it like, I think it would be better to go this way with the call to action. It would fit kind of the flow of where we want this in this campaign to go next. And so you have to be open to that kind of feedback. And you can get to that place.
I love that. And I like that you said it doesn't happen overnight. I've never seen it happen overnight. It usually comes through a lot of time and effort and a lot of time together and really spending time together. I know in remote environments it can be a little difficult, but really the ability to understand people, showing a willingness to take feedback, things like that is how you build those relationships. Sarah, there's a million areas where we could dive into this still. It's amazing, but we have run out of time for the day. It has been an amazing podcast. I think that the collaboration between these two teams is vital. And the insights you shared is amazing. Like, these are so good. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If anyone has questions or wants to reach out and further the conversation with you, how and where can they find you online?
LinkedIn. Reach out to me on LinkedIn.
We will link to your profile in the show notes. So anyone wanting to talk to Sarah, just click on the link in the show notes and you'll be able to get a hold of her real quick.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, Ben. This has been fun.
Yeah, thanks for your time and insights today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Content Amplified podcast. Please subscribe and leave us a review. And for additional ways to get more out of your content, visit our website at getmasset.com. That's getmasset.com. And tune in next time to the Content Amplified podcast.